Another exciting interview to bring you today on Off the Podium as we get so close to the Beijing Olympics. We can sniff it, and we are continuing chatting to people from the great sport of ski jumping. And we are speaking to an American athlete who competed at the Youth Olympics in 2020, is on the cusp of making her senior Olympic debut in Beijing. It's a pleasure to welcome to the show Paige Jones. Paige, first of all, welcome to Off the Podium. It's a pleasure to speak with you today.
Thank you.
I'm
Happy to be
very,
here.
I'm very excited to learn about your journey and everything that's happening, because we always learn about why people get involved in their respective sports, what took you on that journey. But for you, you basically, I feel, were born in the right place at the right time for your sport. You were born basically in an Olympic city, in an Olympic year, right? Salt Lake City,
Yep.
2002. I mean, you can't write this, right? Like everyone who was born in Salt Lake in 2002 had to become a Winter Olympian, surely.
Right. It's like
Which
some
is
people
that?
believe in astrology. If you're born in Utah in
Yeah.
2002, it just makes sense, right?
It works that way. So is that kind of what led you? Like you growing up in Salt Lake was sort of it was there. It kind of the city was obviously no doubt booming still after hosting an Olympic Games. And is that kind of what drew you to winter sports and ski jumping?
Yeah. So I actually live in Park City, not Salt Lake City. So Park City is where the ski jumps are, where the bobsled track is, and where they hosted all the I think ski racing and like freestyle stuff. So I mean, Park City is pretty much as much of a mountain town as you can get. So I've been skiing since I was 3, and there's a lot of programs within the elementary schools to get kids involved in winter sports. So I did this one called Get Out and Play, and you sign up and you do it like for a certain amount of Fridays in the winter. And I did the program up at the UOP, which is the Utah Olympic Park, where you just try out all the sports they have up there. So I did ski racing, cross country, ski jumping, and freestyle. And so I did that for 1 year. I wasn't a super huge fan of ski racing and didn't like freestyle because I kept on falling on rails and stuff. So the next year I signed up for ski jumping with my sister, and you get pretty addicted to the sport pretty fast. There's like little achievements enough, like when you're younger, like you move up from the 5 meter jump to the 10 meter jump to the 20 meter jump, and it's kind of gets you really hooked that way.
It's kind of that progression kind of as you go further and further. And as I'm learning a lot through a lot of our ski jumping guests on the show, it is a sport where I think you start younger than I ever imagined you would, kind of going over those jumps and progressing. So is that sort of when you're going up the distances that as you're sort of getting older that you're going, okay, I'm so close to that 90 meters, I'm so close. And then when you get to the top of that and that first time you're about to jump on the 90 meters, it's a mixture of, shit, this is a lot bigger than I thought it was versus, okay, I'm finally here.
Yeah, I mean, definitely. I feel like we all talk about like which jump up is the biggest. I think the jump from the 40 meter up to the 60 meter is the biggest. So moving from the 60 to the 90 didn't feel like that much, but it's definitely exciting. Like you're finally on an Olympic sized hill. And let's see, I think I jumped the 90 for the first time at 12, or
Wow.
maybe I was barely 13, and I started jumping at 9. So
Wow. That's crazy. And then ultimately, then do you jump on the 120 at one point? And then is that sort of
yep.
the progression, like, or do you, because you're at the 90, it's like, okay, well, I'm at the 90 now, I can already get to the 120, or is there still a moment where you've got to progress to go to the 120?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I think I jumped that like about a year later, but it's not as much as a progression between the 90 and the 120 than I feel like other hills are.
In terms of sort of other sports, I mean, you're mentioning obviously those winter-based sports that you gave a try, but were there other sports that you were trying sort of growing up that maybe you were looking at pursuing, and eventually ski jumping was the one that kind of took over as the one you focused on?
Yeah, I actually did gymnastics for a while and ended up quitting gymnastics to do ski jumping.
Wow. Okay. Which is it's
But
interesting actually, because we get a lot of when we talk to our freestyle skiers and sort of our aerialists. I mean, a big thing in Australia is they steal all the gymnasts, make them good aerial skiers. That's why I always feel sorry for the gymnasts because I'm like, we never have success in gymnastics because you steal all our bloody good gymnasts and put them into freestyle skiing. But does that gymnastics background help in ski jumping? Obviously, you're not doing tricks like you do in aerials, but I guess kind of the flexibility and kind of, I guess, kind of some of the techniques I can imagine you somewhat use in gymnastics.
Yeah, I feel like the flexibility, yeah, but like, I mean, I quit gymnastics at 9, so I don't think much flexibility was happening. Like, I was already flexible, because I was 9. But the one thing I think gymnastics helped with was body awareness, because with ski jumping, like, tiny little movements make a big deal, and you spend half the time in the air. So like just knowing where your body is can help a lot, and I think gymnastics did help me with that.
In terms of Olympic aspirations, were you looking at these different winter sports as a potential goal to becoming an Olympian? And obviously, again, sort of being born in an Olympic city, kind of probably you're a lot more aware of it. But I mean, was gymnastics something that you were thinking at some point, like, hey, I could go to the Olympics in gymnastics, maybe?
Not really. I think Olympics didn't really become like a goal of mine until probably high school, because up until then, sports for me was just for fun, not really for, yeah, more just for fun than more like competition. So I think definitely not at 9, and probably not until I was 14 was I really looking at the Olympics.
I mean, does that sort of come about when you mentioned that competition side of things, that when you are getting to an age where you are becoming more competitive, or maybe you're realizing that, hey, I'm doing okay at this ski jumping thing. This could be something that I could achieve.
Yeah, I feel like it became a really concrete goal after competing in Olympic. Well, I didn't actually compete in Olympic trials last time, but for jumping for Olympic trials in 2018, that's kind of when I like made the goal. Like next 4 years, I'm training and I'm training for the Olympics. I
Being in
was
that,
15 at the time.
I was going to say, being in that environment though, where you're kind of around those people who are progressing, like, does that help you? Does that, in terms of being around those athletes who are pushing towards an Olympics and are there to kind of add to that aspiration that you're just mentioning that, but also learning from these athletes who are going to be competing at the Olympics?
Yeah, I mean, definitely. Like, I grew up in Park City, and I don't know how much you know about the kind of women's ski jumping, but there was a real drive for women's ski jumping to be added to the Olympics. Um, and the women's team from the US kind of drove that. And so a lot of that team was made up from athletes from Park City that I interacted with quite a lot. So I think growing up and watching them, one, fight for that to be included in the Olympics, and then to watch them attend the Olympics was really great.
Because that's a unique thing about women's ski jumping at the Olympics. It's still so new, which is such a weird thing to talk about, isn't it? That coming into Beijing, it's only the third time it's ever been held at the Olympics, where, we talk so much about bringing those equal playing fields for both genders at the Olympics in sport, and some has obviously done a great deal of that. But we've talked about recently how some of the winter sports seem to be falling behind a little bit with that, but they're catching there. But yeah, the inclusion of women's ski jumping in Sochi in 2014 obviously was a massive boost for female ski jumping, wasn't it?
Yeah, it definitely was. And I feel like it got us more visibility as a sport. And I feel like obviously we were included in the Olympics in 2014, but there's still a lot of like inequality even within the sport outside of the Olympics as well. But I feel like getting added to the Olympics was a huge step.
Which I have to ask, I think we've talked a little bit about this before, but I look at the men's competition, you've got your normal and you've got your large hill. I know at the World Cups, you're competing in the normal and the large hill. We're about to see the mixed event in Beijing. Why the bloody hell are we not having a large and a normal hill for the women, or a women's team event? Like, what's going on there, IOC? Like, surely if you want to spread it out equally, we should be doing this.
Yeah, I mean, the large hill event actually just got added to World Championships. So I was the first woman to jump a large hill in World Championship events
Wow.
last winter.
Wow.
So it just got added to that. And I feel like now that it's been added to World Championships, we will be able to see it in probably 2026. But like, it's definitely, you can still see the inequality even within the Olympics. So
What's that like, having that sort of history-making moment that you are the first ever female ski jumper to compete in a large hill event at a world championships? I mean, that's something that nobody can ever take away from you.
Yeah, I mean, it was pretty great. It was also my first world championship, so like overall, I
Wow.
was just kind of super pumped to be there. But yeah, I remember I like barely qualified for that event, and since I was so early in the qualifying round, I ended up being assigned bib number one for the actual competition. And my coach comes in, he's like, "Paige, you're number one. You're the first one to go." I was like, "Yeah."
Great, fantastic. Which, and also like
Mhm.
in terms of the differences between going down a 90 and 120, I mean, is it something to the speed's greater, like the adrenaline kicks in a little bit more too? Like, is it kind of a different feeling that you would get by being on the normal hill?
I don't think there's a difference in adrenaline really. I think once you do it enough times, it just like kind of feels like, you know. But it is faster and there's a lot more force going into it. So you go into the curve of the in run and you can feel it compress you more. And then in the air, your skis are going to hit you harder and there's going to be more force against you in the air.
I love learning so much from some of the guests we've had on recently about the real mental aspect of ski jumping. I think we had it explained that it's pretty much 80% mental, 20% physical, which to me is an incredible sort of discrepancy when it comes to that. But when it comes to your mental preparation for an event, sort of, do you have anything that you do yourself that maybe other ski jumpers don't? Or is it kind of a case, is there a go-to mental preparation method which generally works for most ski jumpers?
So what I've been doing is I listen to music at competitions, but only with one earbud in because I like to hear the announcements. Um, so that kind of helps. And then while I'm actually like getting ready to jump and stuff, if I have any like time where I'm just sitting there, so instead of being anxious, I recite written poetry in my head,
Wow.
which like yeah, I've tried like singing in my head, but it didn't like take my focus off of being anxious enough. So now I recite poetry in my head.
Wow. So is this poetry that you've written yourself, or do you have like a favorite poet that you kind of go to?
No, I have one really long one memorized, and so I just kind of pick up pieces from that when I need to like just focus and stuff. It's Jellyfish by Sarah Kay.
Okay. Wow. Can you give us a
Yeah.
taste? Am I putting you on the spot if I ask you for a bit of jellyfish? By I don't, I can't say I've
Um
ever heard of it before.
yes. I also haven't competed in a while, so I'm gonna have to remember it. Okay. It was somewhere between the first day of school and the last, somewhere between morning and nightfall, somewhere between New York City and the very tip of Long Island. There was a 9-year-old girl standing somewhere between the shoreline and the sand dunes, scanning the horizon like a hawk, like an Amazon warrior, like Charlemagne the morning before he took on his last enemy, jellyfish. There were jellyfish on my beach and in my ocean, and that silhouette of a soldier, that was me. I was the 9-year-old protector. I was the Amazon warrior. I was the conqueror of the venomous. I was the no, sorry. I was the vanquisher of the venomous. I was the conqueror of the jellyfish, and I was armed with my bucket and my legs, which were strong enough to hold against the pull of the sinking tide and wait for one of those red and purple, translucent, throbbing bubbles of death to float unexpectedly into the claws of my plastic trap, and then to dart onto the shore to toss my captives mercilessly into the sand pit I had dug, never stopping for breath, except for a juice box under the shade of a green and white umbrella. That's kind of all I can remember off the top of my head.
Wow,
But
I've got to give you
yeah.
a clap for that. That's brilliant. That
Oh, thank
I've
you.
never like that's insane. Like, and that like the focus that you have just to remember that. I mean, I could see it in your face there, kind of doing that. But like that's got to help a big time, kind of in a sport like ski jumping to really like
Yeah.
you're so focused.
Yeah, because what I found is like with ski jumping under competition environment, if you're like thinking a lot about your ski jumping, you're likely to overanalyze things and mess stuff up. So if I can take my focus completely off of the competition until I'm actually like putting my skis on to go, I find that helps.
So have you actually then considered a career post ski jumping in slam poetry? Because I can kind of see that there might be something
Not
going on
quite.
there. That should be an Olympic sport. We're actually breakdancing in Paris. Where's slam poetry? Come on. That's got to be.
Wait
That's got
long
to be a
enough, it might
thing.
be added.
Yeah, exactly. You never know that, but it's fascinating that real mental aspect of the sport because I sort of love watching you when you're at the top of the run, and it's kind of that you can just see it in a competitor's eyes and just everything that's going through that mind. And is that a case of you've done all that prep, you're at the top, you're about to go, you're waiting for the coach to give you the signal, that's everything then, that it's the opposite, you kind of got to calm everything down to a point where you clear your head? I mean, sort of what's going through that mind at the top of the run while you're about to go down to jump?
Well, at least for me, like by the time you get to competition, you're not fixing anything. You just need to do kind of what you've been practicing. And so at that point, you know what you need to do, and it's mostly muscle memory. And with the added like adrenaline and pressure of competition, I find that like just having a clear head, you do what you need to do.
Do you, sort of being born in an Olympic year, sort of, do you go back and watch some of the tapes of Salt Lake? I mean, I remember, was it Simone Amman doing so well at those Olympics? We got a lot of coverage here in Australia of him, a sport that gets no coverage in Australia, ski jumping, but I think they touted him as Swiss's flying Harry Potter, or it was something very weird that they kind of marked around him. But do you kind of like to go back and look at those things, that this is the year you were born, sort of, within the vicinity of everything along those lines?
I don't think I've actually watched any competition footage from 2002 other than Alan Alborn. He's the jumper from the US who jumped that year. I've watched his jumps, but I mean, other than that, not really.
It's I see. I'll age myself here too, Paige, by saying that I remember having the video game. I think it was on PS2 back then, and ski jumping was always one of the ones that I loved. I remember I had the Nagano '98 one on Nintendo 64. I'm really showing my age, but like the ski jumping events on those games were always the ones that I loved, and it's fascinating coming from a country where we've never had an Olympic skier and ski jumper. No one knows it outside of the Olympics, already the Eagle. So it's fun to kind of be exposed to it in weird ways like that.
Yeah, it's really funny. So I have a TikTok account, and I've had some ski jumping videos kind of like get a lot of traction. And a lot of the times what people will comment is, I haven't thought about this sport since I played it on the Wii. So like, it's definitely like, it's either, if they don't know ski jumping right off the bat, it's either Eddie the Eagle or that one game from Wii Sports that kind of like gets it to click.
which I think I need to start advertising myself as like a multiple Olympic gold medalist, because I don't know how many golds I won on the PlayStation. I've probably won like 30 gold medals, so I mean,
yeah.
I should put that on my Instagram bio, like 80-time Olympic gold medalist on Salt Lake 2002 on PS2.
Yes.
Just dig it out, kind of, add that to some profiles of that. You went to the Youth Olympics, as I mentioned in the intro, in 2020. What was that experience like? Because I always love hearing about the Youth Olympics, because I'm a fan. I think these are a great event to really give young athletes a taste of multi-sport events and also an Olympic experience. But I mean, how did you find sort of 2020?
I mean, I think it's probably one of the coolest competitions I've been to. Like the athlete housing they had us stay in was super cool. It was like this one big circle. And I mean, like getting to meet a bunch of athletes from different sports, from different countries was super cool. Like I still keep in contact with a lot of them. I ended up making friends with a lot of curlers, which was actually pretty funny because,
Right.
I mean, like the actual competition part of it, at that point I was still relatively new to international competitions and that kind of flow of things. So it was definitely good to get over there and to be under like that sort of pressure of a competition and just kind of feel it out and see where all these kids who are my age are at. Because the unique thing about the Youth Olympics that I feel like we don't see a lot more in other ski jumping competitions is that we were all really close in age. Because like, look at the World Cup, like our oldest person I think is over 30 and the youngest is probably like 17 or 18. So like just being able to go there and compete against people who are under 18, and most of them I think were older than 15, was really cool. Just to see kind of where exactly I ranked against the people who are my age.
I love that you're saying you made friends with the curlers. That they're good people to make friends with. But it's also that unique environment. We talk to a lot of our summer athletes, and if you're in track and field, if you're a swimmer, you're going to a Pan Am's, a Commonwealth Games, multi-sport events constantly where you're bumping shoulders with these people and getting that taste for it. But winter sports is obviously a little bit different. You don't really have a lot of these massive multi-sport events, right? So, while you're probably bumping shoulders a lot with Nordic combined athletes, kind of in that aspect, it's sort of, you're never going to see a curler kind of at the World Ski Jumping Championships, are you?
No, it's pretty funny actually. So I have friends who do both luge and bobsled. And in the US, there's only two tracks, right? And I live in the city at one of them. And I still haven't met either one of them in person.
Wow. Jeez.
Because like every time they're in Park City, I'm in Europe, or like every time I'm in Lake Placid, they're not there. And it's just so funny how like we haven't managed to overlap.
It's so interesting kind of with that. Like, I love that.
But yeah, so that was super cool.
Yeah, I love that kind of aspect with so many of the winter sports. Again, like, it's unique facilities, like you mentioned, only two tracks in. I think there's only about. I think with a few of our bobsledders on, they've mentioned that there's like 17 tracks in the world or something like that. Like, it's very sort of unique. But even with ski jumping, like, you don't obviously, you don't go to every single suburb of every single city and there's a ski jumping ramp, right? You've only got a limited amount there in the US as well. So it's kind of, again, those unique aspects of being able to do your sport, which you don't just go down to your local park on a Saturday and do.
Yeah, I will say there's probably more jumps in the US or just around in general than you're thinking of. But because there's a lot of random ones that popped up over on the like Midwest and East Coast. But we only have obviously 2 Olympic facilities and I think only 3 big hills.
Which Casey Larson told us a little bit about that, but I learnt that Anchorage has one as well, which, I mean, yeah. I've been to Anchorage. I love Anchorage. I love Alaska. So, I mean, any excuse to be able to go to Alaska, right? That must be a unique experience to go up there to jump.
Yeah, I went there for junior nationals. I can't remember what year. I remember I got second, and then I caught the flu and pneumonia at the same time and felt like I was dying.
Wow. Okay, so not the greatest memories of Anchorage then, maybe.
Yeah, I don't remember much after competing, actually, because I had to start getting on some pretty heavy drugs. So,
which just is that during? I mean, it sounds like a dumb question, but bear with me. Is that during winter or summer? Because like I was there in summer when like there's no such thing as darkness, whereas obviously for the winter, it's basically the opposite, right? So I mean, are you there in constant daylight or constant darkness?
So we were there in the winter, but you can actually jump there in the summer as well.
Right, of course. Yep. Which, because I'm learning this, I love this aspect of the summer ski jumping thing, which is something that I didn't even realize until recently. Do you have a preference? I mean, we're going to talk about it. You lived in Australia, so I don't know if you're more of a fan of the sun. So like, let's do the summer stuff, or get rid of all that snow.
I mean, I like both for different parts. I think summer is more consistent, like conditions wise. Because in the summer, the track is made out of porcelain. It's not changing. And a lot of the times it's like the same temperature. There's barely any wind, where in winter you see, especially like here, you see more storms, you see more wind, and you have to like think about ice conditions and stuff like that. So I like the summer more for that, but I think overall the winter is more fun. Obviously ski jumping initially is a winter sport. The air is thicker, which is nice. And, the tracks are faster, and we compete a lot more in the winter. So,
which I'm just seeing this as an addition potentially 2032 in Brisbane. Now, we're technically a Winter Olympics because we're holding the Olympics in July. That's winter in Australia. But given that you can compete in summer, this could be an excuse to finally build a ski jumping facility in Australia. So we could bring in the summer ski jump to the Summer Olympics and have it sort of on both sides of things. We could work on that over the next decade or so.
Yeah, I mean, if you can find a hill and then you dig under the hill and then you build the in-run up on scaffolding, you could totally do it.
Do it, yeah. There's a few hills I'm thinking Tamborine Mountain out somewhere in Queensland there. There's a few. Like, I'm from Tasmania. We're a very hilly state. So, hey, bugger the mainland. Yeah. Let's bring it here. Let's bring ski jumping to Tasmania. There you go.
There you go.
It works. It works perfectly.
Yeah, I mean, you guys managed to have winter athletes to every Olympics. There's no reason you can't put up a ski
Exactly. We
jump
just
somewhere,
got to
right?
crack the glass ceiling of ski jumping in this country. We've had a Nordic combined athlete. Why not a ski jumper? We're double doing double the work for Nordic combined. We have to, produce half of that to get a ski jumper. Come on, Australia.
Exactly.
or like again, you could always come back to Australia, change allegiances, and you could be the first Australian ski jumper.
Yeah, perfect. I mean, my aunt is a citizen there. I could probably get citizenship.
That works. We've done it before. Dale Begg-Smith, our greatest male mogul skier, is a Canadian. He won us a gold and a silver. So, I mean, it works for us that way. So we're not opposed to taking some North Americans and making them change allegiances. Why not? Works perfectly. Which, just in terms of your progression right now, where you're at sort of in the lead up to Beijing now, you were just named the US Ski Jump Athlete of the Year. Congratulations for that. But sort of mixed with
Thank
that,
you.
I believe you had a bit of an injury earlier on in the year. So where are you at right now in terms of progressing to a potential spot at the Beijing Olympics?
So I have been cleared to jump for about a month now. I track it. I've taken 83 jumps post surgery, and so there's definitely been challenges. I had my ankle basically surgically fixated for about 4 months, so there's a lot of mobility issues with that, and flexibility is very important in ski jumping, especially ankle flexibility. So working through that has been a bit rough, and then just kind of trying to figure out how much I can train, because I definitely got cleared for sport, tried to train as hard as I did before, and ended up having to take like a week off because I irritated the hardware that's still in my ankle and stuff like that. So, I mean, it's definitely hard to come out of a really good winter season where I definitely felt like I was going to have a shot at the Olympics, and then trying to come back from underneath, taking 6 months off of ski jumping and stuff like that. But I'm still I'm not counting myself out quite yet, but I'm definitely trying to focus more on more short-term things, like getting 100 jumps under my belt and stuff like that.
So tell us what happened in terms of how you got injured, because from what I could see, it sounded like a pretty nasty crash.
Yeah, so I crashed at junior nationals, actually. We went just because we were home for long enough between world championships and Bluebird tournament, which is in Russia. So we went to junior nationals, which was in Colorado. And I took one jump of training. It's a bit rough. Going from a big hill, which is what I went from in world championships, to a 60 meter, so half the size, is always a bit rough. So I took one training jump, was like, oh, and then my trial jump for the comp. No, was it my trial jump? I don't remember. I think maybe it was first competition round or trial. I can't remember. But anyways, so I went up, jumped, full gassed it. So basically in the air, I was too aggressive. So instead of having enough air under me, I didn't have quite enough. Fell forward after landing at, I think it's 73 meters, which I think is 2 meters short of hill size. So that's pretty far. So I fell forward, caught my knee under me, and since my ski didn't pop off, it just kind of snapped my ankle. So I had a spiral fibula fracture. I tore my deltoid ligament, and then I also disrupted my syndesmosis joint.
Wow. Ouch.
Yeah.
That's crazy. I mean, and do you know sort of in flight that something is going array here, or is it until you actually land that you go, shit, this isn't going to be good?
Yeah, I mean, I was more just I knew I was going to go far, and I was kind of excited about it. It was like, oh yeah, I'm going far, which is kind of why I gassed it and was too far forward on my skis. But definitely as soon as I went down, you don't crash very often in ski jumping, but usually it's pretty okay. You're fine. But when I went down, I could tell it was weird. And then I slid out kind of in the splits, and I was just laying there, and I just couldn't get up. And I was like, something is really wrong.
Wow.
I thought I just sprained my ankle, actually, until they took my boot off and I could see my fibula kind of poking out. It wasn't through the skin or anything, but I could see that it was wrong.
Wow. Yeah, that shouldn't be there. right?
No.
That's not looking normal on that side
Yeah.
of things. So on that you mentioned the 83 jumps. What's that first jump like when you are able to get up there? Because I can imagine back to the mental aspect, there's got to be a part of you that's going, okay, the last time I did this didn't go too well. How is this going to go this time around?
I've actually been pretty lucky so far with like the mental part of coming back from injury. I'm not like scared, which is good, nice. Like I've also, I mean, I've been taking pretty low speed and just kind of putting a lot of trust in my coaches that they'll make sure I'm not putting myself in a situation where I'm going really far and might hurt myself. But that first jump was really weird. My balance point is completely different now because of just ankle mobility reasons. So that was weird. And then my coach wanted me to jump without jets in my boots. So we have these things called jets, and they're basically like wedges that we put in the back of our boots. And so they wanted me to jump without those. And I've been using jets for like probably 2.5 years. So I think that was honestly the weirdest part of it. But it was super great just kind of to get back on the hill. And I was definitely more excited than scared at that point.
And I can imagine during that recovery, is there sort of a drive mentally, sort of through all the physical pain and sort of the the therapy that you're going with that, but that goal, that Olympic goal, is that kind of what pushes you through there? That even if it's maybe not going to be for Beijing, that it still can be something and really push you towards getting recovered and back up there on the hill.
Yeah, I think definitely like feeling pressed for time definitely pushed me during more the later parts of physical therapy, just to kind of push as hard as I could because I wanted to get back on the hill. My goal was to get back on the hill by August 30th, and I got back on the hill September 3rd. So it's definitely part of the drive is that Olympic deadline. I don't know if that's
deadline.
The right word,
It's a deadline. I mean, it's kind of it happens that way. So how does that work then? So I believe there's a lot of quota based sort of aspects there. So in order for the US to qualify a jumper or two, they've got to be certain qualification standards met. And then does that then work on US Nordic will choose you basically on how you're performing, or kind of like how does that whole selection process work?
So we'll hold Olympic trials on Christmas Day, and whoever wins Olympic trials is guaranteed a spot if we have a spot. And then after that, I think it's coach's discretion.
Wow. Okay. And then does that then also work for the mixed team? That, say, for example, Team US qualifies two, and you've got two men. There's a quota available, or is that a different aspect how the team one works?
I'm going to be completely honest. I don't know how the mixed team is working for Beijing.
Yeah.
For how it worked with world champs, the mixed team isn't decided before you go. It's once you're there based on training. But I mean, I've never been to an Olympics, so I don't know if that's how it works. But yeah.
Do you enjoy the sort of the team aspect of it too? Because like, I mean, in such a sport where it's kind of very individual, like to have a team element to it must be sort of a new exciting thing that you can kind of experience.
I mean, I personally, I love my team. I think there's like 8 of us. We're all really close. I think even though we compete against each other, most of the time we get along. We're kind of rooting for each other. Like I'll get done with my jump. Maybe I had not such a good jump, but I'll turn around once my teammate's going and watch them to make sure they have a good jump. So I really feel like our team dynamics are great. And I love I live with my team for a good portion of the year, and I travel with them and I see them every day. So.
And is it a case of you get them into poetry as well? Or is that like, no, that's my little thing. You can't have my poetry. That's my mental preparation.
I mean, I don't think anyone on my team knows about that. So, surprise if they're listening to this. That's what I'm
That's
doing.
why she's so good. That's why she's the ski jumper of the year.
No, I mean, I feel like a lot of us, especially with mental stuff, if we do talk to our teammates about it, a lot of us have to, we'll say, this is what I've tried or this is what I do. But we also have a team sports psychologist. So, I think a lot of the same ideas get cycled around.
And I can imagine, though, that, again, in that mental aspect of the sport, having a sports psychologist is very important in the sport of ski jumping. And I can imagine that they help you a lot.
Yeah. Our psychologist is named Nicole, and I'm always just she's a godsend. She deals with so much of our crap, and she's so great.
Wow. Which
It's
I'd love
like
to find out sort of how you, like, because obviously you go into psychology for Reed, but then to kind of specialize in sports psychology, it's kind of that unique aspect of blending two things that maybe sound like they don't work, but clearly they work so well.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely bigger in some sports than others, but like I cannot imagine like not doing mental training. I feel like it's so important. Like even for other sports, like think about like if you're running long distance, there's got to be some mental training in that, right? Which
Yeah.
is like pacing yourself and pushing yourself. But yeah, I feel like mental training should be something that everyone does.
I'd love to learn if there is a sport that doesn't require mental. And I don't want to single out sport. I can think of a few, but there's got to be mental aspects to it. But I mean, like boxing, like you're punching the shit out of someone, but there's technical sides of it. There's stuff like this. There's definitely a mental aspect to boxing. But I'm just trying to think what would be a sport that you don't need to, mental preparation. I can't think of one.
It would just have to be like a blind fury sport, but I
Yeah.
can't think of what that would be.
Even like the 100-meter sprint, which is over and done with in like 10 seconds. Like you've got to be mentally prepared on the blocks to get off there in a way
Right.
to go, right? Like all that kind of stuff. Like there's a trivia question that we can go forward. What's the one sport that you're just like, no, none of that mental shit. Just go out of it. Go training that way. We wrap up with a set of sort of get to know you style questions, Paige. I'll get you just shortly. Just a couple of things I want to touch on with you. I read a get to know you questionnaire you did on the US Nordic website in the lead up to last year's Youth Olympics, and I loved when they asked you an animal you most relate to. You say probably a squirrel. Now, is this a flying squirrel because of how similar sort of it is, or is there another reason why and it's not just a squirrel, you're probably a squirrel.
I mean, I don't really like the like what's your spirit animal question, so that's why I put probably. But I put a squirrel kind of just because I'm a little bit like spacey, kind of all over the place, but also kind of high energy, and that's what I imagine. Like if a squirrel had a personality, that's kind of what it would be like.
That works. Which I have to ask
So-
you, you lived in Australia. Now, I can imagine that when you see a kangaroo for the first time, you get excited. But like, I know when I lived in Canada, I see a squirrel and I'm fascinated. I'm like, holy crap, it's a squirrel. Like, oh my God, look. Or I see a deer, like, oh my God, it's a deer. And people just look at me going, Ben, it's a squirrel. It's a deer. Who gives a shit? Whereas like, to us,
Did
that's
you
a
see
kangaroo.
a moose while you were there?
I saw a moose. I actually saw a moose in Alaska. That's where I saw my only wild moose. I didn't see one in Canada.
Okay.
But I have, and like, we
How
were
was
on
that?
because we were on a city tour and we were somewhere, and all of a sudden the bus driver's just like, oh, and look, there's a moose, and you're like, fuck, that's big. I like, you can
Yeah.
hit a kangaroo with your car. I'd be dead if I hit one of those mooses in my car. I think, like, Jesus.
Yeah. I think I have family that lives in Australia. My aunt used to live in Manly. Now she lives in like a small city outside of Perth. But so I've been visiting her every once in a while since I think I went for the first time at like 5. So like I can't remember the first time I saw a kangaroo, but like every time I see like Australian animals, I love them.
Do you have a
My
favorite
favorite
Australian
is
animal?
echidnas. I love
an echidna, there you-
echidnas.
wow,
Actually,
nice.
wait. Let me go grab my echidna.
Oh, she's got props. I like this. This is always exciting right now when people can sort of bring this in. I'm excited
This
to
is
see.
Edna the echidna.
Oh, nice. Perfect.
Yes.
Wow.
But yeah, I love echidnas. I think they're super cute.
Did you see
I
one in the
actually got
wild?
to touch a koala while I was there, and I thought they were going to be fluffy, and they are not. They're
not,
like
no.
carpet.
Yep. And you didn't call it a koala bear. You've learnt. I can tell you've lived in Australia, so that's
Yeah.
sort of good.
There
So
we go.
I mean, what were some of your best experiences? I mean, sort of living in Manly. I mean, beautiful beach right there. I mean, do you get on board the Sea Eagles? Do you go to some rugby games and kind of cheer them on?
I did go to quite a few footy games. I didn't go to any like actual rugby games. I think the coolest thing is on Wednesdays we would go and do like a sport just like for school. So I signed up for surfing, and so every
Nice.
Wednesday I went surfing for school, and that was great. And I actually ended up getting super into it. I probably went like every day for at least an hour or two while I was there. It's fun. Like It's not like high stress or anything. You just can kind of like sit out there.
Yep,
It's
just
great.
chill. Yeah,
Yeah.
which it's, I mean, sort of you going back when you were talking about sort of in schools, we had skiing programs and things like that,
Mhm.
completely foreign to Australians. I mean, if you live in Mount Buller or Thredbo, maybe, but for Australians, yeah, if you live near a beach, there's probably going to be a surfing program where I can imagine,
Right.
Park City, sort of, nowhere really near an ocean. You don't exactly have that in part of your schooling system.
Yeah.
Kind of different. Which did you learn? Now you and I talked a little bit off air about how much we like to say certain words in Australia, but did you learn any Australian vocabulary that you maybe use to this day?
I don't think I did. After I came back from Australia, I did say rubbish a lot instead of trash. Um, let's see. I don't think I use any, but I know like bogan and
Hey, you need to know that one.
yeah, what servo,
Yep.
Maccers instead of
Mac.
McDonald's.
Yep.
Those are the ones that I can think of off the top of my head. I just think it's so fun how you guys shorten everything. I got into an argument with this one person about calling a kangaroo because while I was there, they'd either call it a kanga or a roo, and I'm like, just say the full word.
Just
Doesn't
call it
have
that
to be
way.
shorter.
Which it's funny. I worked retail many years ago, as we all do, and I remember serving this customer, and he was probably the most Australian person I've ever met. And it's sort of like, oh, what are you up to on the weekend? And he's like, I'm going roo shooting, and just like, okay, good on you, well done. So I was like, yep, that's pretty Australian to hear that sentence said to you. So
Yeah. I also think it's funny. Australia is the only country that like hunts and eats their national animal.
yeah, we're the only country in the world that our animals on our coat of arms we eat, both the emu and the kangaroo. Did you try kangaroo and emu when you were here?
I did. I also tried it was either crocodile or alligator while I
Probably
was
would have
there.
been
So
crocodile. Yeah, I would
yeah.
say. Yeah. And were you a fan? Did you all of a sudden go, oh, I like eating these random animals?
I couldn't really tell the difference between most of them.
Yep.
So I'm like,
Sure.
I'm a fan. It
Yep.
tastes good.
Kind of works that way.
I
The
was
other
not a
thing,
fan of Vegemite though.
no, look, as an Australian, I'm not a fan of Vegemite. So, often
Yeah.
get deported for that. One thing too, studying biomedical engineering, and I loved
hmm
reading in an interview that you kind of base this decision on watching Star Wars. Is this true?
Kind of. Yeah. I mean, I'm really fascinated with the idea of neuroprosthetics. And like the first time I saw that was in Star Wars, where like Luke gets a fully functional hand and it looks like a hand. And I thought that was like super cool. So yeah, I think that's kind of where my fascination with prosthetics started. And then I learned there's a lot more to biomedical engineering than prosthetics. And I thought it was a really cool path to pursue.
So how close are we to having full-on Luke Skywalker biomechanical arms like that? Are we nearly there?
I mean, you should look this up. So the university I attend, the University of Utah, actually had a project called the Luke Arm.
Oh, wow.
And so, like, I mean, it's not perfect, but we're close.
Wow, okay. I like this.
Yeah.
Far out. Jeez.
So
Uh, that's
it's
I
super
will
cool.
look it up. I definitely will look
Yeah.
that up. Fantastic. There you go. Do you have a favorite Star Wars film?
I think the OG one, I think, is my favorite, just kind of for nostalgia reasons.
Absolutely, good answer.
Yeah,
Any chance to talk about Star Wars on any of these shows, it kind of it
of
helps that
course.
way. Now, as I said, we like to close out with a series of fun, get to know you style questions. These are based on a Team Canada questionnaire that they gave their athletes ahead of Pyeongchang and Rio. I mean, to be honest with you, they're similar to kind of some of these ones that you answer, but I'm not going to ask you about a spirit animal. That's not one of the questions. I think
Okay,
they often have the
good.
drawing element, so they often ask you to draw an animal, but. Not on this one. I'm reading off today a hockey player, Laura Fortino. So no drawing elements for you today, Paige. Your favorite
Okay.
ever Olympic moment is?
Hmm. I mean, I think the funniest one is when that Australian speed skater won because everyone in front of him crashed.
Yep. Stephen Bradbury, legend. Basically, year you were born in your own state. I always love telling the story about when I went to Salt Lake City. I went to a jazz game. It was at Vivint Smart Homes or wherever it's called, and I
Mhm.
was more excited to be in the building that he won a gold medal in rather than watching the jazz play. So That's my level of geekdom, that I'm in this history-making building for my country. And people are going like, what are you excited about? This is go Jazz. And I'm like, yeah, sure, go Jazz. But Bradbury, come on. Exciting moments like that. It actually makes me happy that I think you might be the first non-Australian to answer that. So well done. You are winning these
hilarious
questions.
and I love it.
He actually, in all seriousness, he has an amazing story. If I ever could recommend an autobiography to read of an athlete, he's very, very inspirational. And because obviously he's very well known for winning a gold medal by everyone falling over, but he actually had a pretty incredible career and was a very good speed skater, and sort of it all literally fell into place come Salt Lake. So it's a great story. Yeah. As a kid growing up, who was your favorite sports team?
I mean, I'm going to be honest, I didn't really watch sports as a kid. I don't even now. I don't even watch my own sport for the most part, so I don't really think I can answer that.
I actually like hearing that sometimes, because it's kind of like when you do something, people automatically assume like, oh yeah, but like sometimes you're just like, look, I enjoy doing it, but I wouldn't watch it.
Yeah. Like I have a teammate who watches like basically every single competition, knows all the like results and stats, and it's actually kind of a running joke on my team, but I just kind of show up places and I don't know who's there, what's going on. Like, I know nothing about men's ski jumping, and the only reason I know stuff about like the women's World Cup circuit is because I was on it last winter.
Yeah. Well, that works, right?
So,
like that,
yeah, it's kind of a running joke that I do this sport and I know like basically nothing about it.
That fits. I like it. I like the honesty. If you could be any superhero, who would you be?
Ooh, that's a good question. No, I've been watching a lot of Marvel recently, so I think I might have to go with Scarlet Witch.
Oh, yes. Hey, I like that, actually. That's one of those sort of ones that people don't all, it's always Wonder Woman, Superman, Batman, sort of those sort of things, which are fine, but no, I like kind of, I'd go Ant-Man just because Ant-Man's awesome and it's Paul Rudd. So,
Yeah. I do like his character a lot.
Yeah, which, again, I remember hearing that. Let's cast Paul Rudd as a superhero. Like, really? That's not going to work. But then it's like, probably, he's my favorite in the MCU. I'm not going to deny it.
Oh, he's great.
Love it. Love it. Your favorite music artists are?
Ooh. I listen to The Killers a lot.
Oh, good choice.
So I might have to go with them, actually.
Good answer. I like that, actually. And I guess, Park City, Utah, Nevada, Vegas, within the vicinity. So kind of, you're near sort of where they're from. So
yeah, the lead singer actually lives in Park City at the moment.
Oh, really? I did not know that.
Yeah, and the album they just released is about growing up in Utah.
Great. Wow.
Yeah, so I think their music is really cool.
The things I learned. Do they work with the Mormon Tabernacle Choir to give a real sort of, Utah flavor to it?
No, I think it's actually more of a critique on the Mormon culture in Utah, so probably not.
we won't touch that one. That's a different episode. If you could eat only one food for the rest of your life, what would it be?
Ooh. Cheese.
Oh, yes. Best answer.
Yeah.
Come on. Get on board. Yes. That should be the answer to everything. Cheese just is the best thing.
Honestly.
Right? Like, come on. Did you enjoy Australian cheese? We've got some pretty good cheese here.
Yeah. I did not enjoy your meat flavored chips though. That's something I could do without. I go to the store wanting to buy some cheese puffs or something, and it's just chicken flavored biscuits, and I'm like, what is this?
So did you try burger rings at all? Were you?
Yeah, I did. It's not a fan.
Jeez. Oh, see, I'm not a big chip person, but I don't mind the burger rings. But I love how you can judge a lot on a country on their chip flavor, right? It's a thing that people don't talk about. That if you're in Canada, you're gonna get your ketchup chips, right?
Chips.
It's kind of a thing. Is there a distinctly American chip that you can think of that only you can get in the States?
We're gonna go with chips.
Yep, just chips.
I think chips in general are just kind of American flavored.
Yep. Which on that, did you get confused in Australia that we call fries chips? So it was kind of like hot
Yeah.
chips and potato
And I was
chips,
like,
right?
well, what do you call fry? Like, I was like, so if you call fries chips, then what do you call chips? And they're like, chips. I'm like, how do you know if you want fries or chips? And they're like, call it a hot chip. And I'm like, if you're going to call it a hot chip, why not just call it a fry?
Yep. Yeah, I always blame the British, right? Like, because it's their fault,
You can blame a lot of things on the British.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, God, they sent us their criminals, So, I mean, come on. If you want to blame our stupidity in Australia, well, you should have sent your better Brits out to Australia.
Yeah.
Maybe we'd be a better country, Britain. Jesus, get on board with it. Your favourite place to compete is?
Ooh, that is a good question. I'm gonna have to go with Oberstdorf. That's where World Championships was, and I really thought it was cool. I mean, even with everything being locked down with COVID, I think like the place itself has really cool atmosphere. The hills are really cool, and I wish I could go back there again to compete and stuff. So
Great, great. Like it. Have you had a chance to look at the Beijing facility and kind of, or even do any competitions there at all?
so they haven't held any competitions on their hills there. I think their test event is in December, but I did look them up and they look kind of wild.
Great.
They got this
All
like
right.
big oval ring around the top of them.
Nice.
Which I mean, I feel like when they make new Olympic venues, I always try to pull some like architecture feat because it's like, the ski jumps is kind of where you do that. But a circle is never one that I've seen. So
Okay. We'll keep an eye out for it. There you
yeah.
go. What is one thing that you have always wanted to do?
Skydive.
Skydive. Okay. That
Yeah.
works. I saw on your Instagram you'd scuba dive with sharks. So that
Yeah.
must have been pretty cool.
Sharks are my favorite animal. I'm obsessed with them. Um, so that was really cool being able to do that.
Jealous. I'm Australian and I'm not even, I mean, I probably swam at a beach and there's been a shark near me, but, never willingly
Yeah, probably.
gone and done that. Now, I mean, you might have already answered this before talking about surfing, but there could be a different answer. What's your favorite thing to do in the summer?
Yeah, I'm probably gonna have to go with surfing.
Yep.
I
Okay.
haven't been able to do that um, in a while, it feels, because last summer we were locked down on COVID, and this summer my leg was broken. And generally, like we get over to California once a summer, and I can surf. So
I was going to say, is it a trip to California? Do you go further south, like Mexico, kind of like, or even bugger it, let's go to Hawaii. Why not?
no, usually California.
Works. It's close enough. You can drive there. I can't drive to California, so you've got a leg up there on that. Your favorite movie is?
Ooh, The Princess Bride.
Ah, nice, good movie. Yes, I've seen that
Yeah.
for a long time actually.
That's
There
a
you
good
go.
one. Or actually, I might have two that are tied. I also really like Howl's Moving Castle.
Yep. Which
So
it's that genre, right? Like if you like that,
those
there's
two
that
might
whole
be tied.
there's that whole kind of anime sort of element. Like if you like that, you're gonna like a sort of lot of those type of movies, aren't you?
Yeah, I mean, it's a Studio Ghibli film, and I feel like all their films are kind of the same vibe. So I like most of their stuff.
It's kind of like if you like Tim Burton, you're gonna like any film that Tim Burton puts out, right? Like it's kind of that sort of same
Right.
element
Yeah.
of kind of films on that way. Now, this question on the Team Canada questionnaire is my favorite place to visit in Canada. So let's change that up. Your favorite place to visit in the US is?
I'm gonna have to go with Ventura, California.
Okay, nice part. There you go. I like it. I've seen this summer sort of element kind of creep into things and
Yeah,
too much
it's nice.
snow.
Sometimes go warm up my bones.
Yep. Got to do that around that aspect of it. Your favorite cartoon to watch growing up was?
I watched a lot of My Little Pony.
Ah, okay. Right.
Yeah.
Which has a really weird a fan base that isn't necessarily the fan base. I think like I know some adults who are older than me who are really into it, and like both genders, not judging, but it's weird that My Little Pony has a very quirky fandom, which is odd.
I haven't run into any adults who are into that, but I think that's kind of funny.
They exist. They definitely exist. Yeah, look it up. It's a fun community. If you had to do karaoke, what song would you sing?
Ooh, I think anything by Taylor Swift.
Okay.
Maybe I Knew You Were
Gotcha.
Trouble.
Yeah. I like that. It's funny you mentioned the Killers. My go-to is often Mr. Brightside. So that's kind of always a good karaoke
That's a good one.
jam.
Everyone
Yeah.
does it.
Yeah, go to that, or I believe in a thing called Love by the Darkness, because I can just go really high pitch and pretend that I can. I can't really go that high. What am I talking about? Final question for you today, Paige. If you could choose an Olympic sport other than your own to compete in, what would it be?
Yeah, I think about this a lot. Because like I joke sometimes. I'm like, I'm done with ski jumping. I'm switching. But can it be winter or summer?
It can be any winter, summer. Yep.
I think I would have to go back to gymnastics.
Okay, I like it. That works. That's were you artistic, rhythmic, trampoline?
Uh, Normal gymnastics.
Artistic, yes. You're not throwing a ribbon or jumping on a trampoline, right?
I remember which one is which.
The bean, the pommel
Every
horse,
time
the
I
floor.
watch them, I'm like convinced I can do that stuff. I'm like, yeah, I could totally do that. And then I like literally can't even do a back handspring.
I was going to say you've got time
But
to
yeah,
switch,
I think I
but
would want to try that.
yeah,
Not for gymnastics.
Yeah, I was going to say gymnastics, like it's kind of one of those weird sports, isn't it? That like you're about to turn 20, so kind of you're almost a veteran if you were kind of 20 in gymnastics, which is very unique. Paige,
Yeah, I think
before we let
if
you
I
go,
were to switch like right now, I
Yeah.
could definitely pick up curling.
hey,
Yeah.
yes, you've got the friends, so you know the sport. I'm sure they can hook you up with some equipment.
Exactly. I got the connections. I think,
Yep.
I mean, the men's team last year, I think, was all like 30 plus. So we're good.
Hey, yeah, exactly. I always like to point out that in Tokyo, Australia had a 62-year-old equestrian rider who won 2 medals. So, you know, I'm 34. I've still got hope that I can make an Olympics one day. So,
Never too late.
Exactly. Before we let you go, Paige, if people want to stay up to date with you, sort of follow your journey towards Beijing and beyond, social media, where can people, and your TikTok too, not just, you know, Instagram and that. I want to learn TikTok.
Yes. I think my handles for TikTok and Instagram are the same. I'm going to actually double check that. But
Well,
my
that's a thorough
Instagram
name,
handle is Pesh_Delesh. So that's P-E. I know. Well, I have kind of a generic name, so I had to kind of branch out. But PESH_DELESH. And then my TikTok one is the same, but with a dot instead of an underscore.
Okay. All right. Remember that. TikTok uses dot,
Yes.
not underscore. That's the
Yeah.
that's the important thing. Paige, it's been a lot of fun learning about you, your career, the sport, everything else. We're looking forward to seeing how things play out for you and crossing those fingers and toes for Beijing. But if it doesn't happen, Milan, anything moving forward, and bugger it, Brisbane 2032 as a gymnast. There you go. You got 11 years to get back into form for that. How does that sound?
Sounds great.